Namaste. So, as always, Sri Aurobindo brings hope, not just hope, but tremendous hope. Not just hope, but certitude. And the certitude is based on the single truth that this world is a manifestation of the divine, progressive manifestation of the divine. The divine is hidden within it, and he is expressing himself progressively. And this is the real basis for hope. And therefore, sooner or later, this world starts getting modified as the divine emerges more and more. In the individual, as this unfolding takes place, life changes, circumstances change, situations change. Sometimes it turns topsy-turvy. At the national level, at the global level, it is this emergence which changes things. So we think that it is by external events and circumstances, but they are themselves part of the result of this working which goes on inside. So this is what Sri Aurobindo brings, and that's what we saw in the first part of the synthesis. Basically, that all life is a subconscious yoga of nature. And by yoga, here it is meant that the divine hidden inside creation is heaving, leaping, rising to meet the divine who is beyond in the supreme transcendence. So, but in the process, because it's not like returning back to the original status. Original status, yes, but through a manifestation, and which means through a progressive modification of matter. This is what is happening. So when we look at life from that angle, we see this whole worldwide universe is nothing else, material universe, but a progressive extension of the divine himself. He has become space, he becomes time, he becomes all these objects. As very beautifully it is said in Savitri, the objects are his letterings. He has written letters through the objects in space. This wide universe, material universe. And the next step of the divine Shakti in a recovery from the inconscient is this world of life, teeming with countless possibilities, beings, forces, energies, animals, birds, beasts. And eventually the third step is the divine Shakti takes the third step with human consciousness, emergence of human consciousness, emergence of mind. When we begin to become more and more self-conscious, these are seeking for higher and greater things. And now the time has come for the fourth step of the Shakti, and that fourth step is the emergence of the supramental being. Now this is inevitable in the logic of creation. It's going to be, if we look at evolution, it's evident because the power that has raised dust to man will not stop here. Man is very half-finished product. And if you look at it from the other angle, that if divine is hidden in creation, as all Indian Sanatan thought affirms, then it is evident that sooner or later the divine will manifest himself through newer and higher forms. So this rush towards buying a ticket to nirvana is evidently a fallacy, both of human reason as well as spiritual reason. The mother has said it's a misguided mysticism. No problem with those who want to escape. But Sri Aurobindo's yoga is not an escape from life, but a transformation of life. Now comes this aspect where he speaks about the individual yoga, when it becomes conscious. So initially this subconscious yoga has pulled up till man. But in man, it seeks for a conscious collaboration of man. That's all. If man doesn't collaborate, still it is bound to be, because it's there in the logic of things. It's the original blueprint. But if man collaborates, the process will go much faster, it will be much smoother. So ultimately, whether we seek a solution to our individual problems or of the world problems, the solution lies in consecrating ourselves to the divine more and more, so that we can participate and collaborate in this process. So in this collaborative process, there are few things. As we know, Sri Aurobindo has completely revolutionized the whole way we approach yoga. He has made it so vast, so Catholic, almost literally without any boundaries. Sometimes frighteningly so, because people look for a fixed method. And he won't give us a fixed method, though he says you can use all methods. So, this first chapter the first is the yoga of divine works. Now, why divine works? Because works are the royal entry into the courtyards of God. If we eliminate works, if we just take the path of bhakti from inside, if we take the path of jnana, we eliminate actually unwittingly the world existence. because it's through karma. There is a constant outpouring of energy which is building, creating, maintaining, destroying, all this that one energy is doing. So it's collaborating with the divine work. Entry through the divine work is the most royal road. And Sri Aurobindo goes on to say that if you don't take part in the works for the divine and use work as a means of ascension to the divine, then you miss out on something most fundamental to this yoga. So this is the background of the yoga of divine works. But before that, he speaks about the aids. What are the aids which help us in the sadhana? Often people ask a question, what is the starting point? Where do I begin? Well, wait till we get a call. So this is the... You can't begin yoga by reading a book of yoga. So Sri Aurobindo speaks of it in the next chapter, self-consecration, and several places. So what really is called for the yoga? Or rather, let's put it, there is a preparation for the yoga and a call for the yoga. Call for the yoga means that there is this certitude, this central faith in the spiritual conversion. So that becomes our core goal. There is no doubt or ambiguity about it. That is the call for the yoga. Meaning thereby that we feel that whatever this world may be, with all its wonderful things and all its fascinating events, our personal life may be very good, accomplished, but yet there is something which is missing, which only can be fulfilled by going beyond into that limitless. So the moment that it comes that there is a greater truth to know, a greater world to discover, a greater consciousness or greater being to become, so then the yoga begins. It can come in 100 ways. But before that, there is a preparation, and the preparation includes reading of books, preparation includes contact with people who are walking the path, preparation includes some kind of contact by coming, going, getting a picture, putting along, looking at that, till a day comes when we say, this is the thing to be done. So it is a change of goal. Call means, one is that goal is worldly joy, worldly happiness, but divine is there in our life. That is the way religions approach the divine, which is okay, nothing wrong with it. It can be a first step. And call is when we say no, the goal itself has shifted. So the goal is the divine, and this world and all the activities must become a feeder to move towards that. So if that happens, then we are initiated into the path. In this yoga, there is no outer initiation, very clearly. But there are certain signs. One is the call for yoga is a very clear sign of initiation. The other is to know that the mother is divine. These are words of the mother that nobody explains, nobody says anything. But suddenly there is something happens in the heart and it recognizes the mother as divine. She says, when I say that someone is initiated, it means that I have revealed myself to him. How this revelation comes, why it happens to some, it doesn't follow a logical order. It's not like the very good people, the very moral people, the very saintly people who are practicing intense meditation will get the call or the revelation. It may not be. So this fitness or unfitness is decided on a completely different basis. So this is the first part. Then comes the question of the 4 aids. So here we have these 4 aids. Sri Aurobindo describes them very beautifully about the Yoga Siddhi, which comes if there are 4 great instruments that can work together. Even if there is one instrument working, even if there is one aid, it is good. But if all of them are working together, it's something very beautiful. So these 4 aids come from Sanat Sujate, which is where he writes in one of his essays on yoga and its objects. What is revealed there? I'll just read it quickly because there it's a kind of summary. Okay. This is not from the synthesis, but it kind of summarizes. It is said in the Sanat Sujate that 4 things are necessary for Siddhi: Shastra, Utsaha, Guru, and Kal. So this is the sequence he follows. So again, each one he elaborates in great length. The teaching of the path, zeal in following it, the Guru, and time. Now here it comes in a very direct, simple way. Here Sri Aurobindo is as if speaking in a very, very personal mode. He says, your path is that which I am pointing out. As simple as that. But later if we read in the synthesis, he speaks about the Shastra. So here he, in synthesis, he widens it to any extent that the real Shastra is, of course, inside. Meaning thereby the original script, the original journey, the path, everything is inside us like a blueprint. And it has to be discovered. But usually this discovery takes place, some kind of a mantra or some kind of a word which will suddenly open the doors inside. And this too will spring from inside. In this yoga, there is no person who from outside gives an initiation, though it may happen that sometimes a word spoken by someone becomes an initiating point, or the mantra springs from inside. I'm aware of people in whom the mantra has sprung up, which is not in one of the standard writings of Sri Aurobindo, and yet it is just the appropriate mantra. Now, the mantra can be something which Sri Aurobindo has written, let's say in Savitri, a line from Savitri, something from synthesis, or just a little, Sanskrit phrase, or simply, O Lord, or simply Ma, anything. It depends on the readiness of the inner person. At the same time, one can pick up a mantra from outside. So it could be a word with which one goes very naturally, inwardly. It suits one's temperament. It something clicks and locks. So this is the agency of the word. Now here Sri Aurobindo says in the synthesis that you can use any of the words from the past scriptures also. Let's say Isha Upanishad. Sri Aurobindo's own experience where he was meditating on these two verses of the Isha Upanishad, which led to the flooding of gates of experiences and realization. It was in Alipur jail. It was about the one divine who is in all beings. So this, when one picks it up from one of the works of the past, books of the past, and by past we are not going to include Sri Aurobindo and the mother. And there is a reason for it. Past means a process which has already been worked out. The present and future means something which is being worked out. So we can pick up something from the Isha Upanishad or the Gita, and then what one does is one meditates upon the mantra, reflects upon the mantra, and then a time comes when the door opens by the power of the mantra, and the truths contained in the mantra begin to reveal themselves. So this is about the Shastra. But then there are two kinds of Shastra. Sri Aurobindo makes it very clear. One is which describes the principles, the truths that are behind the whole journey. So the synthesis of yoga is one such Shastra. And then there is another in which there are methods which are described. So, but when Sri Aurobindo speaks about methods, he says the sadhak of the integral yoga will not bind himself to any one method. Because the moment we fix a method for everyone and for all times to come, then we have actually stopped progressing. And I often give this example that these methods need not be in any of the canonical literature. For example, nowhere you will find in the methods described in Bhakti Yoga that you should hear the bhajans of Mohan Bhai. Of course, it is described as Shravan. Now, hearing the God's name. So it helps, chanting of God's name. You hear it. We have this Vishnu Sahasranam, Aditya Sahasranam, Lalita Sahasranam. All people have also written 108 names of Sri Aurobindo. So all this is there. But it need not be. You just hear this Sunila's music, and it suddenly uplifts us. So it could be any, if one goes into the standard format, one will make a great mistake. And these methods also evolve and change. So there is a time when you feel very uplifted. It could be a classical music which, suddenly stirs in you a deep emotion. But a time comes when all this will change and evolve and grow. So there is no one method for everyone and for even for the person for all times. So he speaks about that, and further he says that however great and Catholic may be the scripture, in this yoga at least, because in this yoga the entire life, the entire journey, every event, every circumstance, every movement has to be transformed. So no scripture can contain everything possible about the journey. Each journey is unique. So scriptures are like signposts. So signposts, we take it like that if I go to Nainital, on the way we will have Kala Dungi where we can stop, by road, where we can stop and take nice tea. Now, what will happen on the way to Kala Dungi? This is a real time event. Sadhana takes place in that format. Long back when there were buses which took us to Nainital, Tara, the Delhi ashram. Now they have stopped it, and for good reason. So we took a bus, I remember once, and I dozed off. It must be 10:30, and it was around 2 o'clock or 2:30 that suddenly, we get an impression that bus is still stopped. Where it had stopped, it was in Muradabad. It just gone a little distance and it stopped. The whole thing was a traffic jam. Now, what happens during that process? No book will tell us that. But certain qualities, patience, perseverance. There were people who started cursing and, Arey, why we are here? We could have taken a train. Now you have not taken a train. The fact is you are in the bus. Make the most of it. You can't now, lament about it. So the journey has its own twists and turns and unpredictable events. Yet there are some major signposts. The major signposts are we have to reach this place. And so you have to keep heading toward that by whatever means. So this is what the Shastra will tell us. No Shastra will tell us all the details of the journey because it is a unique journey of each individual. And each individual has a unique past and a unique future and a unique present. All this has to be taken into account by the Divine Shakti which is working. So this is about the Shastra. Then Sri Aurobindo speaks about the teaching of the path. This is the Shastra. Zeal in following it. And he says that the ideal sadhak is he in whom the intensity of aspiration says, the zeal for my Lord has eaten me up. That is one thing, if at all, we should learn from the Mohammedans. And I'm saying this with all responsibility because, Sri Aurobindo has mentioned about it. The zealot of the Mohammedan. You see, whatever it be, you go anywhere and suddenly when there is time, I'm not saying that you should put a... on the road and start doing namaz. But when there is a time, they sit quietly and, for us, remember the divine. That is the goal. That is the journey that we have chosen. So that kind of zealot where it's important to understand that the most important thing in my life is the divine. That is something which one has to learn. However ill-conceived it is ill-conceived. The journey is not understood. But there is one element which is very beautiful, which we need to pick up. That, the divine is the most important in my life. All the rest comes later. This is the zeal. But it normally doesn't happen like that. So Sri Aurobindo says there are 3 stages in this process. First stage is when we make an effort. Now this effort is necessarily, by default, will not be the ultimate effort needed. And many people get into confusion. Should I do this? Should I not do this? It's not about that. The fact that there is an effort is what counts. Because the divine knows himself in the heart of the seeker. And that's why Sri Aurobindo says that even an imperfect effort, it helps because the divine knows poor fellow is trying. He may not be doing just exactly as he should do it. In fact, there is no such one method of doing it, as I said, but he is trying. So what I mean by that is whether you should concentrate exactly in the center of the chest or 2 inches above or below. Don't get into that. That will distract the mind. Concentrate in the heart on the divine presence. He will pull us. So that's what is meant by when we try to codify a system too much that he has revealed in the synthesis in the beginning, then it loses the living spontaneity of man's approach to the divine. All methods which are strictly codified, do it this way and of course a lot of money gets involved in that. That's not a way to approach the divine because we are not approaching a mathematician but somebody who loves us and who understands us just as we are. So he's not a nothingness who has created a supercomputer hyper pathways for people to calculate with a computer and thread. He is capable of suddenly picking us in the middle of the market and pulling us, bypassing all the roads and lanes. All this is possible. So it has to be a very living approach. The sadhak, the zeal is towards a divine who is very much living. And in the first part, there is this effort. The second, where we have to become receptive, the receptivity, the divine will start pouring in. But that's where there is another kind of effort, which means receiving the divine, which means when doubts come, you have to keep it away. Because the moment the divine begins to act, the hidden resistances will begin to come. And in various ways they come. So we'll talk about it when it comes. So we have to be receptive, keep away the doubts, know that this is the journey, this is what counts ultimately. Doesn't matter, I do not understand now, but I'll understand the divine working later. And the various ways one tackles it. So this way one becomes more and more receptive in different parts of our nature. And then third is when that which is pouring in a receptive nature. Receptivity grows the more we give to the divine. That begins to take possession. And that is the part when sadhana begins to proceed at a great speed, touching upon every little detail of life. Because now it is the divine who becomes the sadhak of the sadhana. So this is the person, the aspirant. And third is the guru. And here again, Sri Aurobindo says the guru is inside. This is something very interesting. See, each avatar is the outer representation of the Jagat Guru who is unfolding now a new story in the drama of life. So he is, the Jagat Guru decides that, okay, now I have to start a new journey for man, create a new path. So the avatar comes and stands at the front, at the gateway. But it is he who is doing it. So avatar, because he is identified with the Jagat Guru, meaning thereby now for the next level, he becomes the representative master for a particular unfolding. So meaning thereby all gurus in essence are the same, but each form and name becomes a certain angle of vision through which the journey takes place. So meaning thereby that Buddha, Krishna, Christ, Sri Aurobindo, in essence, if you go, they come from the same source. We can even say our psychic being comes from the same source. But it doesn't mean that if I start following Buddhism, I'll arrive at transformation. No, I won't, because that's a different approach. If we want transformation, it is Sri Aurobindo. So we have to understand the representative nature of the master. So very few can contact the master within directly in the very beginning. In some it happens right in the beginning. From the beginning, they know this. They are completely aware. But Sri Aurobindo cautions, you should be very careful. Don't abandon the effort. Keep vigil, because otherwise one may either become inert or one may start mistaking every impulse as if coming from the divine. So the discernment should be kept alive. And then otherwise the Guru comes outside and he says initially there would be a partial conception of the Guru. It doesn't matter. Now I am not going into all the Ishta Devta and all those things. But partial conception, meaning thereby somebody may say, oh, Sri Aurobindo is great and I am drawn towards him. I admire his writing. Doesn't matter. He is drawing. We are not ready. The person is not ready to say, Sri Aurobindo, Name Anando, Jogi Rajo, Namo Namo. It's okay. One day he will say. But let it happen spontaneously. Now I have seen this. There was a gentleman in Bangalore who used to say, like a typical, I'll leave a blank, who intellectual. He said, Mother is okay, very nice, but I don't know why you people call her as God. And then he would say, only thing I like about Sri Aurobindo is Savitri. He used to enjoy. He had that poetic touch. That he used to enjoy. But rest is okay. You people have made a whole religion out of all this is not required. Savitri is very good poetry. So we used to say, one day you will know. So that day came when relics came. So relics came and we had arranged like everybody will hold in the hand who were working in the bhavan and take around. So he also held. When he held the relics, he started crying. So I was observing. So after he passed it out, I just went, took him aside and in my little naughty way, I asked him, Dada, ki holo? Why you were crying? So he said, I don't know why I was crying. I said, now what do you have to say about mother? He said, yes, I understand. I am beginning to understand. After that, what a bhakti developed that on his deathbed he was telling people had taken him to hospital. Usual, unfortunately, hospitals have become places where people leave their bodies. The most silliest thing to happen. But anyways, all these tubes here and there, and he was telling the people around, take these out, mother has come to take me. Take these out. Why are you putting all these machines inside me? I don't want them. And he left his body very beautifully. So there comes a time when the divine reveals himself. It doesn't matter. In whatever way, the divine accepts it and takes us forward. So this is the aspect he says. And then he says many people are not ready to directly connect with Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So he says if you need a human representative, the divine will even provide that. So he he makes all kinds of provisions. So there will be human beings who become like a channel. Not that they, for one particular person it may work out like that. But Sri Aurobindo cautions that he should not think that he is a guru. This is the worst kind of thing, Guru Giri. Sri Aurobindo speaks about it. Why? Because, Guru has to unwittingly take the load of everybody's karma. So to start with, apna burden is good enough. But yes, people can become channels, sometimes without knowing, which makes it very beautiful. And he says that the Guru must know that he is a child leading other children. So this idea that now I'm a Guru in integral yoga, now I'm going to guide people, give them a method. By this method, they can progress. This is completely fake, but there are people I know who come through many ways. So some of them, get attached or attracted. Then suddenly at some point they realize that no, there is a greater truth. I'm missing it. And so they turn towards Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So that's why he has opened all kinds of paths and roads. And then he says that do not try to judge the Guru by outer miracles and outer methods. Because the Divine Master uses everything, every small experience, every big event, everything to become a feeder for the journey. And the sign that we have really completely rooted ourselves in the Divine Master is when we begin to see His hand in every event and circumstances, regardless of what it may seem to the outer eye or to the ego-driven consciousness or to the world. Because that is how the divine works. So he is not a guru who is only giving us an instruction. You follow it and you will arrive. If you don't follow, you don't arrive. He is not even a guru who just, in critical times carries us. He is a guru who walks with us throughout the journey. He never abandons. So this is the beauty of the divine as master. And then finally he says, it is time. Because time basically means, actually it's very simple to understand. I can take a personal example. When I wanted to quit Air Force, so to come to ashram. So I tried, thrice I tried, it didn't work out. Then it so happened that immediately, just after the minimum pension, I was wanting to go without pension, thinking it's much easier. But they didn't release me. But just after minimum pension, suddenly somebody became, at the top level who knew my urge, and he said, I'll let you through. You just put in the application. Now you see, now how time is operating. Time was arranging all these things, not that, God was doing all this only for myself, because time is a complex movement, including all the coordinates. But ultimately, it worked out in such a beautiful way. No one knew that something is happening. When I put in the application, people were saying, now there is no possibility. And I knew this time it's going to be shoot shot. So this is how time operates. It's a field of forces. There are things we have started in the past. There are things we have entered into in the present. All this time has to work out. It is not something arbitrary that today I say, I want the divine and it'll come. There are energies which we have initiated. And they have to arrive at their culmination, fulfillment, exhausted, transmuted, every kind of thing. So the Divine Master uses all these things, and that happens through the agency of time. So time is the cosmic manager. And though to the ego he looks like a bad manager, because it's his bad job, he doesn't give things immediately. But to the eye of divine wisdom, he actually works out the divine will. There is a word used for time in Savitri, my trusty time. So he will do it in his own way. We can see it now at the larger level. When Sri Aurobindo spoke about the sun of India's destiny will rise and overflow India, overflow Asia and overflow the world, that was 1909. Even till 1947 when India got freedom. Churchill, he was saying, India is not fit for freedom. They'll die of famine. They cannot govern themselves. Today, the ball has rolled full circle. And people are flustered because an Indian origin person has become the Prime Minister of Britain. So much calumny. This is the way it operates, time. So time works out events, time marks everything. The day, and I was sharing the other day, the day they decided to tie the rope around Sri Aurobindo's waist and to take him to Alipur jail, that day the sun of British Empire started setting. So these things happen in a scale, in a way. Some time back, people were asking about Pakistan. Mother has said they will become one. Mother said, you don't have to do anything, it will happen by itself. And she said it will break into different parts. It looked near impossible. That was a time America was standing solidly with Pakistan and China was their main ally. Today, the situation has turned like that because the divine working is often assured nature. It has its own way of working. Now one can see it more and more openly. So this is how we have to allow time. So the one quality that is needed, Sri Aurobindo says, on one side is patience, patience, patience. Dhira, tamatmastam yenupashyanti dhira. And on the other side, intensity, intensity, intensity. You want it here and now, but you are willing to wait. So this combination is the best combination. If one is too impatient, if one is impatient, it delays. And if one is only intense and, or if one is patient in the sense that one is, okay, it will happen when it will happen, then again it will delay. So you have to have intensity of aspiration and complete patience together. So this is the whole gist of that chapter. And Sri Aurobindo puts it very beautifully, that God himself is the Guru. You will find when knowledge comes to you. This yoga. You will see how every little circumstance within you and without you has been subtly planned and brought about by infinite wisdom to carry out the natural process of the yoga. This is something one has to really experience to see it. In the beginning, when you read it, you say, really? And over years, decades, you look back and say, oh my God. All the time you were holding me, carrying me at the right time, things happen the way they have to happen. So you develop a complete faith and reliance on the divine working. How the internal and external movements are arranged and brought together to work on each other so as to work out the imperfection and work in the perfection. So there are elements of nature which we think should be discarded. People say, oh, why am I having this? Divine will say, wait, just hold on. This is important. I need to change this. I am trying to throw it out. Whereas there is something else we think is great. And the divine will say, this is not of much use. He'll discard it. So this is how things happen. And almighty love and wisdom are at work. What is the nature of the divine and his leading? Almighty love and wisdom are at work for your uplifting. Therefore, never be troubled by the time that is being taken. Even if it seems very long, Sri Aurobindo says, even if it takes beyond a life or lives, it is fixed now. Because the moment the soul has turned toward the divine, it means samay aa gaya hai, time has come. Now this may take, depending on the difficulties, complexities, possibilities. But for the delays, there is a recompense. That also Sri Aurobindo says very clearly. Not that we should delay, okay, there is a recompense. No, but this is a process. If it seems very long, but when imperfections and obstructions arise, be apramat. So this also one can see in the beginning, one curses, blames oneself, complains. Then one begins to see as part of the universal working of nature, stands back. Then one begins to see slowly how the change is coming, using every opportunity for the change. So he says, be apramat, dhira. Several times we have spoken about it. Tamatmastham yenupashyanti dhira. Have the utsaha and leave God to do the rest. Time is necessary. It's a tremendous work that is being done in you. The alteration of your whole human nature into a divine nature. When you give your cloth for alteration, the tailor may simply tear away certain portions. This is very poor. I need to restitch it. Sometimes he may say, this cloth is not good. I'll get you a new cloth. I remember once my pocket, one of the pockets of my kurta was burnt while ironing. So, but it was a nice one. I asked somebody, can you do the rafu? And the person says yes. But the person didn't disclose what he's going to do. And the end result was a beautiful, nice peacock plumage was made over it. I said, my God, this has become better than what it was. It is like this was missing. This has added to the whole shan of the kurta. So you see, the divine works like that. It is not like in a linear way. He utilizes everything and turns every difficulty into an opportunity. So he says, the crowding of centuries of evolution in a few years. You can't be grudging. And centuries of evolution of through animal, rakshasic, asuric, God knows what are the impressions. And then he says something very interesting, my favorite part. There are other paths that offer more immediate results, or at any rate, by offering you some definite kriya, you can work it yourself, give your ahankar the satisfaction of feeling that you are doing something. So Sri Aurobindo will not be found on the road stall, this yoga, that shop. This shop gives this definite kriya. I am doing yoga. Here he makes you understand, man, you are not doing yoga. I am doing yoga. The only fellow who is doing yoga. But you keep quiet. Let me do the yoga. That is the whole art. So, it's like birds. How do they fly? Effortlessly. Actually, it's very beautiful when you look at it. It's only time to time they need to flap the wings. But they are supported by the air. They have learnt it. They have learnt it that, we'll be supported. We should just make this effort that I have to go there and one flap and, they are supported. This is the whole art of yoga. So he says that there are some who give definite kriya, giving us the satisfaction. So many more pranayams today. Very puffed up. Today I have done 1,000 times, 1,008 times. I have written the mantra. Some people sit with mala. God cares little for, your counting. Your mathematics goes for a 6. So much longer a time for the asana. Ego. So many more repetitions of the japa. So much done. So much definite progress marked. See, I am shining in my mirror when I see there is a jyoti coming out. All this self-monitoring. So, halo. Creating that's not how the divine operates. So he'll in fact snatch away sometimes the halo which is making you feel like a charmed boy. Like he did to Socrates, no? So he has his own ways. Like Narad, he gave him a monkey face suddenly. But kept him near, ensured that he will be near him. So these are the ways of working of the Lord. But once you have chosen the path, you must cleave to it. In ashram, in olden times, all the older sadhaks, they used to say only one thing. Stick on or stay stuck. For 1 year, don't do anything else. Don't even try to see what is sadhana. Just stay on. Do, if nothing else, go to ashram, do pranam, whatever. Don't ask, just stay on. And then slowly the color begins to take up. So this is how one has to just cleave to the path. Don't leave the path. Those are human methods, not the way that the infinite Shakti works. Have a heart, it is the Divine Mother who is taking up the entire human nature as built through centuries and millenniums, compressing it into few years. Give us some time. It's not through a fixed method, because fixed method touch only one area. Even japa, done as a purely that all the time I'll do japa, then you will get shut into a small little compartment where everything is beautiful. But the rest of the nature remains what it is. How does the infinite Shakti works? Which moves silently, sometimes imperceptibly to its goal. We can't even see what is happening. There are times, a beautiful line in Savitri, when nothing we can see but drift and bail, a mighty guidance leads us still through all. And then another place, even when we are asleep, still there are parts in us which grow towards the light, which moves silently, sometimes imperceptibly to its goal. advances here, seems to pause there, then mightily and triumphantly reveals the grandiose thing that it has done. Suddenly, one day, you see that how different parts have been tuned, tweaked, aligned, woven into a concord which one had never imagined. And then he says something. Why I'm reading from here rather than synthesis? Because this is in one passage. Sri Aurobindo beautifully summarizes the entire thing, but very powerfully. Artificial paths. People often ask, say something, na? Some kriya, some pranayam, some asana. Sometimes you have to say it is all secret. What is the asana? So I have a term for this asana. Okay. Ulat pulat asana. You turn topsy-turvy. Because you turn to the divine, you think you are great. He puts you on the ground. Then suddenly he lifts you out. You think I am in the mud, but suddenly there are parts which divine has touched, they change. So it is a kind of strange alchemy that he works out through his contact with every part of our nature. Artificial paths are like canals hewn by the intelligence of man. You travel easily, safely, surely, but from one given place to another. This is important to remember. Fixed kriyas. When Kriya Yoga, it had taken up very, very much in US. So somebody asked Sri Aurobindo, he says, yes, these kind of things become easily popular in the US. Because you have to just say, okay, do this. But to say, no, you don't have to do anything. Divine Mother will do it. Then people can't believe. How can that be? Something I have to do. Stay open. Now this open is another big word. How to remain open? What do I do to remain open? See, that's why yoga is a psychological process. Then you have to explain, see, we are open to 100 forces. We surrender to every person, every force, every energy. So what really surrender means? This path is the broad and trackless ocean by which you can travel widely to all parts of the world and are admitted to the freedom of the infinite. So, Sri Aurobindo, in this path, you become aware of the entire Himalayan range, not just one Mount Everest or Mount K2, entire thing. All that you need are the ship, the steering wheel, the compass, the motive power, and a skillful captain. Good. Your ship is the Brahma Vidya. This is the scripture. This is what we must always, the scripture, the mantra, the word in every time of distress to turn there. Faith is your steering wheel. Faith is your steering wheel. Self-surrender, your compass. Every time we don't know which way boat is going, Ma, you take charge. So that is self-surrender. That becomes the steering wheel. But if we try to do it in our way, then we are likely to make it more and more mess it up. So do what we have to do, but always remembering, Mother, I don't know really what is the way. This what is coming to me, but I am handing over the steering wheel to you. The motive power is she who makes, directs and destroys the worlds at God's command. What a powerful thing. She is the Shakti who is moving us. And God Himself is your captain. But He has His own way of working and His own time for everything. Watch His way and wait for His time. Understand also the importance of accepting the Shastra and submitting to the Guru, and do not do like the Europeans who insist in the freedom of the individual intellect to follow its own fancies and preferences, which it calls reasonings. Even before it is trained to discern or fit to reason, it is much the fashion nowadays. So he says, do not follow that fashion, or confuse yourself. Follow the sunlit path that flows from the soul. Once you have turned to the Master, give yourself, obey Him, listen to what He is saying, and keep referring yourself more and more to Him. So this was the, beautiful chapter, and with regard to 4/8, and then comes the next chapter is self-consecration. What we have to do is We have to keep on consecrating every action to the divine. So the crux of it is how to consecrate, because if you just keep divine as a nebulous entity, very difficult to conceive. So it's good to take the name or a form through which we conceive the divine. That means to mother. Now here he is, because he is writing in 1914. We shouldn't forget that the mother physically has not arrived. So keep giving to the mother every action, consecrate to her. Now consecration is literally a ritual. It's ahuti. So we do things based on what naturally moves us. Maybe a desire, movement of desire, maybe ego. Initially we consecrate that. But sooner or later, sooner the better, we have to shift the very motive power of our life. That means life is no more to be lived for the satisfaction of the ego and the desired self. This is the central shift. Details will come later, but centrally it should be very clear that we are no more going to live a life, not like we have to take a pledge, Aaj main pratigya karta hu, nothing of that sort. But inside it should be clear. My life is meant for the divine, to be consecrated to the divine, to live for the divine. So naturally then this one has to do it in every detail. But fundamentally it should be very clear. The central faith that life is meant for the expansion of the ego and its empire, that should be dissolved. And that's where he says that we must remind ourselves that famous phrase of the Kena Upanishad, Tadeva Brahman Tvam Vidhi Nidam Yadidam Upasate. And then the entire range of life has to be consecrated. Not that some things we will consecrate when I sit for meditation, do puja, do the agarbatti. He says if you do that, then you will, like many people do that, they will worship but leave their nature unchanged. So everything of nature has to be consecrated, has to be given. Even including breathing, going to the washroom, even leaving. Sri Aurobindo speaks about it. Every gift that comes, you have to take it that coming from the divine. So you have no obligations to anyone but the divine. Everything that goes from you goes to the divine in the person, so that you are not riddled with expectations. So every action has to be given to the divine, offered in the fire with the divine name, with one aspiration, that may it grow within me and in the world around, beauty and light and love and truth and harmony, or whatever comes naturally. So this is about consecration. And then Sri Aurobindo speaks of the self-surrender as the way of the Gita. So this consecration naturally leads to surrender. So surrender literally means the two important things in surrender. One is to accept the divine in everything. Because otherwise we can't surrender. That means that there is the divine in every event, circumstance, happening, whatever it may seem to us, however opposite, different, there is the divine presence. So we surrender to that presence. Second thing, surrender means that I want to obey the divine impulsion. So the process there is to start with nishkam karma. So that cuts the knot of the desire. I do this, if it comes my way, very okay. If it doesn't come my way, okay. So this leads to an equality and a growth of oneness inside. So nishkam karma is a very powerful practice. Remembering and offering is a very powerful practice. And for that, the whole orientation of life has to turn inward and upward, instead of turning outward and downward. So when we do it, Sri Aurobindo says that there will be progressive. Three results will come. One is we'll begin to slowly separate ourselves from our own nature. So while there is a part which is caught in nature, there is another part which separates. That is the Dvasuparna stage. And it begins to see this. So this one part that will begin to become the witness, the Sakshi. Before the Sakshi, we are just flowing with wherever nature is taking us. Now we become the witness. Then we begin to see what are the things which are aligned and what is not aligned with the divine truth. The discernment which will become awake, and through that discernment we decide, make choices. Earlier the choices were made on the basis of preferences and desires and ego. Now the choices are not made based on that. The choices are made based on what will help me grow into the truth of the spirit. So one is able to discern that this choice helps me to grow. And he says that nothing is to be rejected or excluded. Every activity will become a means to grow into that inner truth. Of course, there are things to be excised, which he says they have to be done ruthlessly, whose names are greed and fear and lust and anger, because they are, of course, the enemies of the soul. They are not natural. It is one of the problems that we have begun to believe that's natural. Well, if you want to call it, it is natural in the sense everything belongs to nature, but we have to transcend this into a higher nature. So even if it was natural, we have to start living into another nature. So not the activity, but the reactions have to be discarded. A person brings a reaction of anger, hatred, that has to be discarded, not the person. Because if you discard the person, you will exchange the person for another person. And then yet another person. And after 10 persons, you will say, see, people are bad. So this is where we have to discard these reactions. Fear has to be discarded. So when fear goes away, then you realize that all these things which happen, disease, death, all the difficulties, challenges of life, fear has to be discarded. Wrath has to be discarded. Hatred, jealousies, they have to be discarded, not the outer thing. So that's what Sri Aurobindo reminds us, that as we proceed with that, we slowly, the witness, the sakshi, changes into an anumanta. So one who decides inside. No more the ego, but something more deeper, the secret soul within. So that's how the psychic being emerges, because the psychic being is the one, when you give it importance, it starts coming, okay, you are ready to listen to me. Otherwise the ego, now in the beginning, it will be like, time to time, the ego will take over. That is the fight between Krishna and Kansa. So time to time it will rush in invade. Time to time each part will have its own individuality. Sri Aurobindo says first thing you discover it that each part of a nature has its own complex individuality. It's almost like an independent personality. And you have to understand it. It's not like a easy trenchant way which like in Jnana Yoga you only concentrate on the idea, suppress your heart, suppress your will. It doesn't work like that. Or in Bhakti Yoga, you just love the divine, you don't care about what happens to the world. No. So, in all of them, we have to bring in the divine, basically. Until one becomes the divine center in the world. That is the ultimate. When ego is completely gone. But in the beginning, ego will predominate. Then there is a fight. There is something which will know this should not. But ego will rush in and cloud, say, little more. Some more time. Lord, grant me chastity, but not yet. So it will happen for some time, and then in the third stage, the ego will become very, very weak. And at the end, while passing away in a particular activity, let us say, it will say, did I give you a good fight? And then you will say, because it gave a good fight, you grew in power and wisdom. Had it left prematurely, we would have remained weak. So this is how it goes, and finally, the whole process is complete, and then one becomes the Ish, Lord of nature. One's own nature. That's the beginning. So these are the three stages through which one passes. And then come the other steps of the yoga. But take home points, call of the yoga, scripture, which is both within and outside. Within it will open and reveal to us many truths which, were not written in the book. That's how it happens. All who have walked the path, they have their own story, their own lesson to say. You see, they will tell you their own, how they connected, in their own unique ways, which is beautiful. And you have the Guru is inside. So as long as we believe Sri Aurobindo has come and he has gone away, we are not ready. Wait till you discover Sri Aurobindo and the Mother are right there, both outside and inside. One has to wait and prepare oneself. And then the call comes. And when the call comes, one has to walk. It takes time. One should not grudge the time. Even an imperfect practice is not wasted, because every little effort goes into the making. And the key is to aspire to the divine and consecrate all actions to the divine by remembering and offering to the divine. And since the divine remains rather nebulous, so it's very good to say Ma and offer to Ma or Sri Aurobindo, because it becomes something which is easy for the human mind to conceive and connect. And for this yoga, that is the path which has been opened. So when we do that, and all activities, and in the activities, not just all activities, and here he gives one example, and that of course we'll elaborate later. For instance, I am doing a work, and I may inwardly love the divine and do it for the divine. But the work must be consecrated, because otherwise I'll continue to do the same old way of working and miss out on the way the divine wants us to work, even in that particular field. Whether it be music or new things may come up in medicine, in engineering, in crafts, art, everything. So this is the broad outline of the yoga, and we'll continue. Let me just read this, because this page is open right in front. So I take it. The divine working is not the working which the egoistic mind desires or approves. For it uses error in order to arrive at truth. This is something amazing. Our errors are his steps upon the way. He uses, mark the words, suffering in order to arrive at bliss, imperfection in order to arrive at perfection. The ego cannot see where it is being led. It revolts against the leading, loses confidence, loses courage. These failings would not matter, for the divine guide within is not offended by our revolt, not discouraged by our want of faith, or repelled by our weakness. Oh, this fellow, 10,000 times I have tried, is gone case. If the divine were to do that, we won't stand even for a moment. So he says he is not discouraged. Sometimes people ask, they say, sir, I don't have faith in the divine. I said, yes, but the divine has faith in you. So he will still lead you. So in whatever way we turn, not discouraged by our want of faith or repelled by our weakness, he has the entire love of the mother and the entire patience of the teacher. But by withdrawing our assent from the guidance, we lose the consciousness, though not all the actuality, not in any case the eventuality of its benefit. When we open and turn, it makes the process smoother, swifter. When we turn away, ultimately it is bound to happen, but it will take a much longer and more difficult journey. And finally, as in the world, so in ourselves, we cannot see God because of His workings, and especially because He works in us through our nature and not by a succession of arbitrary miracles. Man demands miracles that he may have faith. Strangest part is, actually in real life it's not true. I have seen it with people. There are people who hold on with faith even when things seem to have crashed in their life. Whereas people who have had miracles, they still continue to have doubt. This could have been natural, who knows, maybe. So that's how it is. He wishes to be dazzled in order that he may see. And this impatience, this ignorance may turn into a great danger and disaster if, in our revolt against the divine leading, we call in another distorting force, more satisfying to our impulses and desires, and ask it to guide us and give it the divine name. So he's cautioning us, miracles may happen, but it's not miracles and dazzling things through which the divine works. He works through our nature, so he has to work very patiently, picking up every strand, every thread, rectifying where it can be rectified, transforming things which are not yet ready. He will keep it there, wait for its moment, pick up now this one. You say, Hari, what happened? You say, yes, now time for this part to change. That's how the divine works. Namaste.